So on Sunday night, Ford revealed their Mustang Mach-E with a huge event with Idris Elba running the show, and also had a performance by the Detroit Youth Choir. It was clear Ford wanted this to be a very big event and get a lot of consumer attention. Unfortunately, this event felt really fake to me. It was very clear that they were working off of some sort of script, not just because they sounded kind of robotic when they were talking, but they also showed the teleprompters on screen a couple times that they were clearly just reading right off of. Any attempts by Idris Elba to kind of lighten the mood and go off script just felt awkward, and nobody was really expecting it, and just made for a lot of bad moments.
I know for sure you're the first Ford employee ever to win a Golden Globe Award. Nice.
Actually, I think the Mustang has made more movies than I have, and I've made a few.
Well, yeah, I mean...
It was clear they didn't want to say anything that wasn't scripted, but unfortunately this felt very robotic and wasn't a very personal event. But enough about the actual event, let's talk about this car. Probably my biggest confusion, and they mentioned it throughout the event, was that this is a Mustang car. They continue to repeat, like, this is a Mustang, it's got a Mustang soul and all this stuff, but it's very clearly not a Mustang just looking at it. It's a completely new vehicle.
If any car is going to wear the pony, it can't just look like a Mustang. It's got to drive like one, it's got to feel like one, and it has to have the soul of one. Your friends will, I think, instantly recognize it as a Mustang.
If anything, it might be the Mustang's older brother. You can kind of tell they're related, but they are completely different vehicles. And I understand where Ford is coming from here. I think to get consumers' attention, they wanted to tie it to an existing iconic brand like the Mustang. I'm not really a fan of this, but it's very clearly a marketing decision. It wasn't the engineering team that made this decision to tie it to the Mustang brand. And I think it's definitely just to get the attention of consumers to say, hey, this is a Mustang too, you should check this out, and maybe consider this as your next car instead of a Mustang. But overall, I'm actually a fan of the design. It still looks enough like a regular car or SUV that people are going to consider it. They're not going to be off-put by some futuristic design. And it has a really aggressive look to it, and I think that's kind of where the Mustang comes in. And they also kept the iconic triple taillights like the Mustang. So before we move inside the car and I give my thoughts on that, let's talk about the specs and actual performance of this car. So Ford is targeting a 300-mile range, but we won't actually know what that range is until people start driving the cars and the EPA can get their hands on it and actually do a full test. But that 300-mile range estimate is only on the rear-wheel drive version of the car. Ford's actually releasing 5 different trim options with varying estimated ranges, but the highest tops out at 300 miles. And for acceleration, Ford is targeting the mid 3-second range, but again, this is only for the GT trim. Other models are going to be a bit slower. Nice thing is though that all trims can handle up to 150 kilowatt charging rates, and that is good news because that will mean you can get up to 47 miles in just 10 minutes of charging. Ford's also creating this Ford Pass app that I believe syncs to your car, and with that you'll gain access to over 12,000 charging locations in the United States, as well as be able to control charging times and check on the charge status of your car. Okay, moving inside the car now, you're greeted with a traditional dashboard display, and you've also got a massive portrait orientation touchscreen on your right. So a similar setup to the Model S and X from Tesla. One interesting thing about that portrait screen is it's got this massive physical dial at the bottom of the screen, which I believe you can map to different things depending on which menu you're in. So if you're listening to music, you can use that dial to turn up the volume, or if you're on the air conditioning screen, you can use that to adjust temperature. I'll be curious how people actually like this once they start driving the car, but in my experience, it's way easier to just use the controls on the steering wheel, and Ford does have those as well. But overall, I like the interior. I think they've got a good mix of buttons and screens to keep traditional car drivers happy, but also add some more tech features that people are looking for in a next-gen vehicle. You've also got some driver assistant features. Ford calls it Ford Copilot. And this basically will allow you to use adaptive cruise control, so it'll speed up and slow down based on the car in front of you. It also has a lane keep assist, which is not actually steering the wheel, but it will bump you back into your lane if you start to drift. So not necessarily anything groundbreaking here, but nice to have some additional safety features. So that brings us to the price, and the cheapest model is the Select, and that starts at just under $44,000. all the way up to the GT model, which is just over $60,000. And honestly, these prices are pretty good. I think they'll definitely compete with other vehicles in the class. And this will give people a good option to consider if they are looking at another Ford SUV. Dealership will be able to pull this out and say, hey, you might want to consider this as well. Another bonus here is that Ford vehicles, because Ford has not sold 200,000 electric vehicles, they are still eligible for that $7,500 tax credit. So that knocks down your total cost of purchase even more. So Ford's currently taking reservations on their website right now. I'll make sure I have that link down below. If you want to check it out and configure a car and see what it might cost to own one of these, reservations are $500 if you want to go ahead and reserve one right now. And they're looking at shipping these late next year. So that's all for me. Those are my kind of first impressions and my thoughts on the vehicle. I want to hear what you think about the car as well, so definitely let me know down in the comments. And as always, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of my future electric vehicle videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.